Hey everyone, and welcome back to another industry report. So, today it actually looks like we might have another sleeper hit on our hands. A game that launched to, I would say, disappointment and apathy that now is putting out some serious numbers after a big Steam release. And that game is Sea of Thieves. Yep, while the situations are a bit different, this game might actually be doing its own No Man's Sky style redemption story, and it also gives us further evidence of the power of a Steam release, because yes, there are loads of games now that come out in other places like the Epic Store, and then eventually, maybe a year later, come out on Steam and actually manage to crush it, which is pretty interesting. Now, if you like more gaming news, then hit that sub button, and if you want a fun bunch of loot from our studio's art team in your mailbox, like your physical mailbox, including the Druid class pin, plus of course our daily news catch-up service, early access to content, and a bunch of other things, then check out the Patreon. In a world where CPM suck, they are keeping us going, so patrons, a massive thank you to you, and with that said, let's get into the news. To do this one justice, we really do need to go way back to the launch of Sea of Thieves, which was very different to how it was now. So, the game came out March 2018 in the Xbone and Windows, of course, and basically, I think we all know how that was received, right? What was there was super polished, looked gorgeous, but there just wasn't that much content. There were server issues, there was difficulty playing with your friends in a multiplayer game, and just generally, the game felt really threadbare, and there weren't really progression systems to actually keep people engaged over time. So, the audience kind of came in and just wandered off. And in many ways, it really was a beta that was selling at full price. Now, if you got in via Game Pass, maybe it didn't feel so bad. But certainly, if you purchased that game with cold hard cash, I don't think you were getting that much for your money. So yeah, you had this situation, a core experience that was solid, if very bare bones, and because of that, many people just believed, oh, this game would never live up to its potential. And that's why we've got to, well, talk about the recent news and what's going on there. So, the game released on Steam June 3rd to 10k players, and it has been actually climbing in players, increasing every day until Monday the 15th of June. The 24-hour peak, right, is 62k at the time of writing. The all-time peak is 63k, and that is on Steam. It is very positively rated across 8,500 reviews as well, and that clearly is a really, really, really good performance. And it's also something that really does spark off another topic for us to discuss, and that is the idea of a second release on Steam. I mean, look at, say, Satisfactory. That's an Epic Game Store timed exclusive. Of course, it's now on Steam Early Access. There's been a whole bunch of games like this in situations, I think with Metro as well, where the developers basically experienced, yep, we had our launch in Epic, it was pretty good, which of course is great for them because they will have got whatever they got via their deal with Epic. They will have got the 90 or the 8812 rev share, and then what seems to happen is these companies bring their games onto Steam and they actually still do sell quite well, so that certainly is interesting for Sea of Thieves. Now, what's also relevant there is that it has gained a very solid Twitch following, where basically it's a popular alternative game for streamers who want to unwind a little bit, and also it's a game that just has natural stories, right, because it's all about pirate shenanigans, and that means that, yeah, it's a big toy box and cool things can happen, and that really does remind me of the original case where basically Summit 1G was partially responsible for a large resurgence in this game. And if I remember that situation right, it was at a stage in his career where a lot of people were like, oh, dead streamer. And then he started streaming Sea of Thieves to incredible success. Now, on Twitch right now, the game's got 22k viewers. It's got 23k average over the last 7 days. So that is pretty good. It's the 14th most watched game in Twitch. And that means that Sea of Thieves is beating out Rainbow Six Siege, PUBG, and Destiny 2, which are all pretty darn big names. Now, Summit 1G, of course, has actually started streaming it again. He started that in April after becoming bored with Valorant, and he got 2.8 million hours watched in just a couple of weeks, which is a really great performance. So basically, there is it by the numbers. I'm not going to say that this is literally a No Man's Sky situation, but it is a situation of this game having a bit of a turnaround. And to actually understand that turnaround, I think we've got to go and, hop into the reasons why. So first of all, let's just talk about the more meta stuff. This is not Sea of Thieves' only period of big popularity. The game does see a spike anytime there is a significant content update. December 2018 and January 2019, I think that original Summit 1G period, that saw the same sorts of Twitch numbers that we're seeing now. And then April 2020, that had another interest spike, with the average viewership tripling from April to to May. You've got this situation with Steam where there's now a new market that it's on, right? It was announced on May 21st for Steam off the back of their April update doing well. That interest seems to have hung around, so that's a new way for players to be involved in the game. And then they're going to get the benefit of the cumulative updates that they've added to the game, which we'll get into in a little bit. And I think all those things just mean that over time it's going to be more sticky. If I think about No Man's Sky, that's a situation where when its first updates were happening, people were coming back in droves because they were like, wow, No Man's Sky is being fixed. And then they'd log in and think, yeah, I mean, that's kind of neat, but it's not enough. But then over time, I think what you saw with No Man's Sky is the amount of people that stuck around after every update, that just sort of slowly increased to the point where now No Man's Sky is actually a really, really healthy game. So yes, with all those strengths and then it being on Steam, and there's some ways, you're not a PC game till you're on Steam. That's kind of what some people will feel, and it does seem like that actually has helped because look, 62k concurrence in Steam, that's nothing to shake a stick at. That is really, really good. And that, I think, means that it's a bit more accessible for anybody who is just following the game on Twitch, has a Steam account, they can go instantly buy it on a platform they trust, right? It's like a frictionless purchase decision, which I think is a majorly important thing for companies to think about when they're going to be expanding past their core audiences. And then, of course, also Steam Discovery is pretty good, right? More casual Steam players, well, they'll have this game showed to them. And then, of course, another thing is there is crossplay. Now, this is pretty important because the crossplay means that on all these different platforms, people are playing together. Now, the reason why that matters is that a game like this is going to have what is called a network effect. Now, a network effect is kind of when, the benefits of being on a platform are greater the more people are on that platform. So, for a multiplayer game like this, when you've got crossplay, when you've got all those cumulative updates happening, then that network effect gets stronger and stronger, making the game more sticky over time. And I do have to wonder if the multiplayer of No Man's Sky actually is what really unlocked that network effect that had it just growing at that faster rate. I mean, come on, this is a Steam top seller on release day. That is how well Sea of Thieves actually did. It takes a lot to be a Steam top seller, so that's pretty impressive, especially considering you could have got this game for literally £1 sterling. I think that's like, what, $1.15, right, for a month on Game Pass? And it's still at a upfront price was a top seller in Steam on its release day. So, it's interesting, right? This game was ridiculed at launch, but it very much seems to have become a pretty solid go-to option for people, and its success only seems to be improving with time. And that's where I just want to give you some more broad context numbers as to what's actually been going off there. So they announced that they had 10 million unique players back in January, and then in a event over last Christmas, they reported basically having 600k active users within a fortnight. It was based off the number of players who caught fire during an event or something. So it's basically that. And then we've also seen some stats that are basically scraping the Xbox Live API that seem to be suggesting something insane. Right now, basically a 2.4 million MAU number that is up 600k from before May. That seems kind of insane to me, but that seems to be what the numbers are. So yeah, this is a situation where they were doing just about everything right, after their launch. They started rolling up the updates, doing the monthly updates more recently, creating that really strong base, and then once Steam came around, it just seems like, they had polished their gun, they'd, cleaned the barrel, they'd lined up their shot, and then Steam just came at a perfect time to capitalize on the success that they were already finding pretty well. Another reason why this has all happened is because it's being built off the back of updates. So to just list through some features that are sort of there now, there's dailies and there's weeklies, and that's something that they keep on adding to. There are trading companies the players can join. There's Tall Tales, which are kind of like quests. There's the Pirate Emporium and the Black Market. There's the Fort of the Damned update that happened, which seems to be a big PvE, maybe PvE, PvP, I haven't actually jumped into it, scenario, but there seems to be puzzle elements as well. But the core thing that I would say here is that there appears to be monthly updates. Now, not all of them are super significant, but for that core engaged player base, I think those monthly updates are a really good thing. And that seems to be a growth strategy that has actually set up the situation where now they can go onto Steam and they can actually have things be pretty good. Now, another thing that I'd bring up here is something that I heard from the Path of Exile developers at there was a GDC talk that's all on YouTube, so you can check it out. But it was basically them saying, yeah, we actually design our game that somebody can leave whenever they want to, and it'll be just fine. Now, what their point was there is that sometimes games, they just bend over backwards to sometimes almost nag you into staying, right? They can go really hardcore in trying to get you to not stop playing. Whereas the PoE devs were saying, look, if you feel a bit bored by the current update, we would rather you wander away, right? Just leave the game and don't harbor bad feelings about the game, so that whenever we do our next update, you're going to think, oh, cool, there's a new update for that game I played a while ago, I'll go play it. And I think that's probably part of what's happening here to so much success for this game. It's a very interesting situation. This Steam launch seems to have came at the perfect time for them, right? There's a peak of interest and also a whole bunch of updates, and I think the Steam page almost like it's marketing itself almost as a definitive edition. One of the quotes on it is 5 major expansions and almost a year's worth of monthly updates. Like, that's going to seem pretty appealing to somebody who bounced off that game in 2018, isn't it? And it just seems, like it's worth a lot more money, like the value proposition actually exists. And then I think when players see that Steam page, they also think about Twitch, and they're thinking, oh yeah, well, my favorite streamer, drops into that game sometimes, and it seems to be on the up, and just that feeling, that story of this game is on the up. That is important, because people don't want to feel like they're going and buying, a game that's on the decline. I remember liking that Lawbreakers. I purchased Lawbreakers. I am one of the very few people who actually bought Lawbreakers and played a whole bunch of it on launch, but it was that situation where even though I thought the game was great, guess what happened? People were like, oh, Lawbreakers, haha, it's not going anywhere, and that meant that people were like, well, I was interested in that game, but I can't buy it now because obviously it looks like a terrible thing to invest my time and money into, and of course, those people were proven right. I think the opposite does apply, and this is a situation where it very much does apply. So there you go, despite a rocky start, they did well. They found instant success on Steam that is indicative of the years that they've put into making that a better quality game for people to play together. And certainly, I mean, if I think about my own experience, right, this is the type of game that, you could be playing Rainbow Six Siege with your friends, but maybe there'll be a time where you want something a little bit different, a change of pace. So this actually seems to be perfectly positioned to be that game. And based on these numbers, it certainly seems to be becoming that game for a large number of people. I think that's actually really good. I think a game like this that is just sort of nice, clean fun is a really good diversifier in somebody's gaming lineup, right? Like, you can be playing your PUBG, your Warzone, your Rainbow Six Siege, but then dicking around on a pirate ship, I think a really nice change of pace. So overall, it seems like props to Rare, props to Microsoft for actually giving them the funding and letting them make good on their rocky start. And it just seems like this is a situation where people stuck by their guns, decided to do some good development, and then it was worth people's time. And now we're in a situation where, and this is the best sort of thing for me to be able to say in this channel, where just about everyone's happy, and it seems to be a win-win. So, pretty darn good stuff indeed. And I always do love, man, there's a lot of negative stuff happens in this channel because it's a news channel, and generally, if something goes wrong, it's newsworthy. If something goes right, people just kind of go play it, and there's not much of a story there other than, hey, the thing's good. There's not really much analysis to do. But this is a great situation where it's like, yeah, the game had issues, but now we can actually talk about it, talk about how it's doing well. I just love more sort of positive, nice stories like that. So, very, very good stuff to be covering, I think. And that is the situation with Sea of Thieves. Certainly, I am feeling a little bit more interested in checking it out, because for me, it has been an extremely long time indeed since I've seen any of that game. So, there you go. That's what's up for today's video. Let me know, are you one of that 63k in that all-time peak of the game? Have you picked it up on Steam? I'd love to know, what's your experience been, especially if you played it at launch and are now playing it. Is it different? So let me know down below. Of course, if you want more content on this channel, oh man, we've got so much. There's The Last of Us 2 stuff going on. There is, of course, WB Games being up for sale, which is pretty darn major in terms of industry biz, and a bunch of other stuff. So check out the channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.